Welcome to the Human Layer AI, a podcast where we interview emerging leaders from different fields to get a sense of how they navigate with AI. With me is Miss Saumya Sharan, and I think it's our second podcast together. What was the topic of our first podcast?
So thank you for having me, Akash. And I remember
Pleasure.
the topic of our first podcast was how to spot a narcissist.
Could you introduce yourself with the podcast? Yeah.
Thank you for having me, Akash. So I am Saumya Sharan. I'm a senior consultant clinical psychologist. And I've been in this field for over a decade now. And I work in different aspects as a clinical psychologist. I have my private practice in Gurgaon at two places, two clinics. I also consult with a few organizations. I consult with National Institute of Design as their psychologist. I'm also working currently at a US based organization where I'm working on the team with diabetes management and reversals. I'm the behavioral expert there. So yeah, these are a bunch of things I'm doing and I'm very happy and excited to be here.
Trust me, the happiness is mine. The topic we are going to talk about is burnout detection. But before that, could you explain as a clinical psychologist what burnout means?
Sure. Burnout. So to state it very simply,
Mm-hmm.
burnout is a chronic stress response which is characterized by emotional exhaustion, physiological depletion. So the impact of burnout is seen across majorly four main domains. It is emotional, it is physiological, bodily, it is cognitive, and it is also to do with your personal efficacy. Emotionally, you feel exhausted, but not your usual fatigue and exhaustion, but something that you feel like cannot be recovered by rest. Cognitively, you feel very disengaged. There are signs like irritability, you can't concentrate. Personally, you feel you keep doubting yourself. You feel your competence or efficiency has been compromised. And physiologically, I mean, you see people feeling extremely tired. Something, they talk about being wired, but still tired, not getting enough sleep. It has an impact on their everyday functioning, the way they show up for their everyday life activities. So essentially, to make it a little concise and short, it's a chronic stress response which is seen across domains of cognitive functioning, mentally how you're functioning, emotional functioning, physiological functioning, even social functioning for that matter, emotional functioning. And it is something that, so if this is your ability to kind of work on your exhaustion levels to feel recharged and replenished, it outweighs that. So no amount of recharging, resting, or replenishment is able to take care of that kind of fatigue or that kind of exhaustion that burnout presents itself as.
So, what can be the treatment for it?
First of all, I think the first step is you can't treat anything that you can't identify or become aware of or make sense of. So first thing first, I think to just become aware that and understand yourself that is it the usual exhaustion that you're going through? Is it a stress response or is it has it like a chronic stress response which is burnout? So there are signs of course that you need to look out for, whether it is in terms of emotional signs like are you being on most days than not, are you being more irritable, are you feeling numbness, are you feeling too overwhelmed by even ordinary everyday tasks and demands? Is there a sense of reduced joy or satisfaction which is not getting better by anything that you're doing? There's a sense of fatigue, meaninglessness that is not going away with rest also. Cognitively, if you feel, that there's brain fog, you can't concentrate, you can't make decisions well, you're thinking a little slower, or creativity has been impacted. Behaviorally, there's procrastination, there's withdrawal from responsibilities, reduced initiative. If you see those signs, first of all, become aware that this may be a chronic stress response. And of course, the context matters. How you have been functioning in the recent past, how you've been showing up for your work, for your daily responsibilities. Are you able to balance that? or with enough rest and replenishment. So get a context of that. And once you are aware that, there is something in my everyday pattern which is making me feel extremely drained, more drained than I usually feel, and it's not going away even with rest or replenishment. I think first things first, consult a professional is what I would always say. That seek help, reach out. That that's something, as a clinical psychologist, that's the first thing I will tell you. But in the meantime, while that's happening, understand that there are a few things that you would need to do to show up for yourself, to show up for this kind of exhaustion. So first is, I think, to slow down more than anything, to slow down, to understand, is there a match between what brings meaning to you, what is aligned with your competence, what is aligned with your daily demands, and what you're doing on an everyday level. So is there a match between that? If not, try and, kind of work that out. Like I said, professional help will be very, very helpful here. Reach out to people. Social connections will be very helpful over here. And I think something that's very underrated nowadays is reduced stimulation, which can be either in the form of reduced screen time or reduced, too much stimuli or instant gratification. So reduce that, slow down in your everyday life, which is very difficult for all of us. We're too used to, constantly getting that fix of dopamine and, just going for our phone. So that, and try and be in the present moment as much as possible. It's not easy. It's easier said than done, but it's a practice and it's a process. Again, that's also very underrated. But these are things that I feel are very important to manage burnout. In order to treat, you definitely need to seek professional help, I would say.
And what does AI play a role as a burnout detector? Like you can see the signs and symptoms as a clinical psychologist. Can AI do the same?
So I'll tell you, AI is here to stay. I know we need to move forward with it, and we can't. We can't reject it, or we can't just, run away from this. But we need to understand how to make it work for us rather than make it work against us. So the one thing we all know is AI is good at detecting patterns. AI with its pattern detection algorithm. So to an extent, it can aid in detection, but I won't even say that, complete detection. You really need human presence and connection for that. So for example, if you're working somewhere and you deploy an AI tool which is helping you to detect burnout. So it can detect patterns in terms of, how many days you're turning up for work, or how engaged are you with your work, or the kind of emails that you're writing, the kind of work that you're presenting, your absenteeism, your how present you are, your productivity hours. So but understand that these are very uh, these are very kind of engineered metric aspects, and that's where the human aspect needs to come. There's also something very important that we forget when we talk about patterns, which is context, and another thing which is emotional nuance. So, for example, AI is working and letting us know that, this person is doing great, and they are turning up on time, and they're all replying to all emails on time, and the tone and tonality and everything is looks fine, and they're present most of the day, they're turning in work. But we also need to understand that we're not taking the context into consideration here. The many high performing individuals are very good at masking their emotions. So they may be going through burnout, but they may still be showing up as high functioning individuals. So we're missing the human nuance context, where you need human beings, where you need clinicians, where you need psychologists. So I think context and emotional nuance, which are one of the most important elements because we are dealing with humans, is where I, kind of need to be there, but human led, AI assisted is what I'd like to call it. It can help us with bringing together data and making sense of some data, but the data in which context, the emotional nuance. There are also some people, and AI might detect that This person's not coming up, showing up for work. They're not replying instantly, or they're procrastinating. They're missing deadlines. But can that be attributed to burnout only? Or maybe it's just a temporary stretch, or maybe they're going through, some other form of emotional distress, which is not burnout. So that's why I would say context and emotional nuance are very important.
So, like you said, AI is here to stay. It's inevitable. So, I want to ask you from the lenses of two fields: A, the employees, and B, the therapist. How would the employees be impacted with the presence of AI? For example, what I personally feel, they must have a diminished sense of worth, that I'm being replaced, I'm replaceable, or my value has reduced, or an existential crisis like, what am I even good at? Uncertainty, will I be fired? Conversely, they can also think that AI gives back time to them to do more productive things. So, what's your take on that?
I'd say as employees, before that, I'd like to just uh, state it out there that I know the narrative that we're all dealing with, that, AI is here and it's here to replace jobs, and it is taking over so many tasks that were done by humans. But the thing is, the way it is being presented, to a point, I think AI, if we see it more as an assisting thing and not as a leading, I think that's what will work more in favor of employees. The fear is, I completely understand, and the fear is justified and valid. But we've forgotten that we live in a world which is, full of humans. Yes, we're making machines to make our lives easier, to make tasks easier, but ultimately it is dealing with human beings. And that's where AI can't step in. I think people need to remember that the emotional nuances, the context seeking, the context of things, the human connection, the emotional intelligence aspect, communication, where human aspects are required, that cannot be replaced by AI. That it's not a human. Of course, the fear is very valid and real, but I think the narrative needs to shift more onto how can it assist us while we lead the world. Humans lead the world, but AI is going to assist us. I think that's the narrative that needs to be presented out there for employees. Because otherwise, I think not just employees, anyone would. If this is the narrative we are presenting, that AI is here to take all your jobs and AI can do it more efficiently, or this is all that AI can do. Of course, humans are going to see it as an enemy or something that needs to be scared. It's scary. But if we are to kind of present it, train it, and also work with it in a way that we understand we lead, but AI assists, because there are some things that AI cannot bring in, no matter what, and which is context, which is nuance, which is emotional intelligence aspect. Emotional human aspect is it's not a precise science, and AI is very precise at a lot of things. So I think this is where we need to kind of present it to employees, and employees need to understand this. And the more we talk about it and use it from that lens, I think that will be much helpful. As a psychologist, I don't think that there is anything to be scared of, because it the whole aspect of therapy, the whole aspect of behavioral psychology or clinical psychology, for that matter, is human relationship. It's the therapeutic relationship. It's the presence of the human. It's the connection. It's how you show up to your client. That is something which will always be done by human beings. So no fear there. I don't think any kind of fear there. We can definitely use it to our advantage. Which I'm sure a lot of psychologists out there struggle with the administrative aspect of work, and we can use that. So for administrative tasks, so that we can focus on the real thing much more. But I don't think any fear needs to be out there. But this it's important to understand it and accept it.
So, personally, do you use AI to help facilitate in your work?
Yes, sometimes I do. Like I said, it's here to stay, but I want to use it to work for me, not against me. So yes, sometimes for a little bit of administrative aspect, I use that. I use it to find out. Sometimes there are things that you need to read. There are papers. There's information that you need to read, and sometimes put it all together. And I use the AI agent to put it together for me. But at the end of the day, it's me who's reading it. It's me who's making sense of it. It's me who's understanding what I want to do with that information. I use it to structure things sometimes. But yeah, but it can't penetrate. It can't come into the humanness of what I do as a psychologist. I would say that.
My last question is what about assessment tests? Would it be capable? As you said, it's a pattern matching machine.
The whole process of assessment, we see it as, you just administer the assessment tool and you get the result. But there's so many other aspects to it. The whole assessment process involves assessment tools. There's history taking. There's a, mental status examination. There's a lot to do with observation as a clinician. My instinct or my clinical judgment based on my skills and years of training as a clinician, which also which needs to be taken into consideration. So uh, even if we are talking about assessment, I mean, but it's just, let's say, it's just, even if we train AI to assess questionnaires for that matter. It may give us the pattern, but then what context do I put for that pattern? What do I do with that results that I'm getting? How do I apply my own clinical skills, my own observation and the time and the relationship that I've established with the client? Where does that come into play? So everything put together will help me assess a client. It's not just a tool which has a few questionnaires with a system and a structured form of coding attached to it, which I can train the machine for. Let's say, there are ethical and, for example, organizational guidelines that at some point maybe do allow it. But there's a reason why it does not. Ethically, you actually need to sit with the client and you actually need to administer this to the client because there are elements other than the tool that matters. It is connecting with the client, it's your observational skill. It is you understanding how the client is showing up for the assessment. What do you notice in the entire assessment process?
So, could you tell us the services you provide and how to contact you?
I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, so I provide therapy sessions. I do take assessments. So I do also conduct workshops and I also do group sessions. I provide consulting services for organizations and corporates. So how to contact me is I have an Instagram page which is called the Pink Elephant because I have founded a small setup called the Pink Elephant 4 years 5 years back now. So you can contact me through my Instagram handle. You can also contact me on LinkedIn. I can share my email ID. These are the places that you can drive to me and contact me. And I'm also there on platforms like Practo. So you can just get in touch with me.
Thank you so much for your valuable insights.
Thank you so much, Akash. I think this was very helpful, very needed. And the more we
Yeah.
talk about it, yes, I mean, like I said, like AI is here to stay, but do we allow it to, kind of uh, take power over us? Or do we, like I said, human led, but AI assisted is the way to go forward?